Welcome to Wisdom Exchange TV. My name is Suzanne F Stevens, Chief Edge Optimizer for the Ignite Excellence Group of Initiatives. One of our key initiatives is the Ignite Excellence Foundation, where we invest, inspire, and develop future women leaders in emerging countries. With that goal in mind, we produce Wisdom Exchange TV, where we interview pioneers, trailblazers, leaders of many in politics, business, philanthropy, and education. Today we are with our leading lady in Johannesburg, South Africa, Anglea Dick, CEO of Transman. Anglea was the founding member of Transman, a labor broker, and has been its chief executive officer for the past 25 years. Since the company's inception in 1983, Anglea and her team have been responsible for finding employment for and recruiting and placing between 7,000 and 10,000 temporary and contract staff daily in the workforce, with a focus on previously disadvantaged individuals. Her multiracial upbringing, together with her genuine concern for the underprivileged in her country, has given her insight and grasp of South Africa's social economic complexities. Amongst many of her achievements, Anglea has implemented beneficial changes in terms of benefit structure and labor legislation many years before such became gazetted and thus compulsory, by challenging the main agreements of some of the bargaining councils so that all suppliers of the place staff were compelled to comply with labor laws. She also accomplished by being elected inaugural president of the Confederation of the Association of the Private Employment Sector, representing staffing services industry by her peers, now the vice president, and currently fighting proposals of new labor laws. Against odds, she has driven the company's revenue from 85,000 Rand in the first year of operation in 1983 to a current budget of 640 million Rand. Being the inaugural winner of the Businesswoman of the Year of 2006 award in the Entrepreneur category, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome this leading lady, Anglea Dick. It is so nice to meet you. It is so nice to meet you because in reviewing the thousands of articles written about what you've done, but there's so much written about you and what you've done, and there's for very good reasons. So I'm looking forward to learning about that and sharing that with our audience today. Tell us, what was the catalyst for starting your business?
I think what disturbed me is that I am very much a child of Africa. I'm very much a woman of Africa. And in the early days when I first started my employment as a sales exec, one of the things that I would do, because I'm a very early riser, I would always be in the industrial areas very, very early in the morning, between 5 and 6 in the morning to go and see my clients. And what I had to do in the 1980s, 82, 83, was to walk through crowds and crowds of men from the townships looking for employment. And they would be smelly, they'd be unwashed, they'd have clothes with holes in them, they'd have shoes of some description or another on their feet, and they were looking for employment. And there was no one there to actually speak for them or to assist them in that regard. And the thing which really struck me, which still strikes me today, I can't live with it, is the look of desperation in their eyes. Because I know that those people had families back at home, and all I could see was the cycle of poverty going on and on and on, with no hope for them in the future. And there's nothing worse for someone than to not have any hope for the future at all. And I thought, these people have got no opportunity to speak to, for example, the CEO or a production manager, operations manager, and so on. But I could do that. I could actually take those people, see what skills they did have, screen them properly, go and speak to those managers on their behalf, and try and find them employment with the best wages, terms, and conditions that I could get for them. And that's exactly how it started. It wasn't very popular, as you can imagine, with business. Because if you can hire somebody for 30 Rand a day outside the gate, and then you've got some female coming along and say, well, you actually need to do this, you need to give them annual leave, you need to pay them public holidays, we need to cover them when they're sick, it's going to cost you 50 Rand a day. Yeah, they could see their Christmas bonuses going out the window, frankly.
Yeah. Now, you were sales exec.
Yes.
Before that.
Correct.
I mean, that's a big jump, because all of a sudden I would imagine your income went down. What was the first step you took to make this new opportunity exist?
I think it was really looking at how I could assist these people, because my nature is that if I can help somebody, I will. Okay? And I think that also my interest in Africa in terms of the indigenous people of Africa, I cannot bear to see this poverty cycle continue. I don't like to see education not being offered to children. I don't like seeing people hungry. And if I can do something about it, I want to do something about it. And yes, I took a risk. And I mean, there were months and months and months, for example, couldn't pay the rent, couldn't pay the bond. We lived on brown bread, loaf of brown bread, and jam a week at a time. Sold all the carpets, the furniture, the cars, etc., to put fuel in the old vehicle that we had in order to get this thing up and running.
And how long did that take?
Took about 5 years for me to get acceptance into the marketplace because it was a brand new concept in industry, and probably about 18 months before there was some form of income coming in. And also what I'd done, I'd used the bonus that I'd received as a sales exec at the end of that particular year to float us for a while, but it didn't last very long.
What are some of the advantages for people to hire temporary staff over permanent staff?
It's not so much an over the permanent staff situation, it's because all companies and all businesses have cycles in their business. You have highs and you have lows. And you may have new projects starting, you might need a specific set of skills for a short period of time, you might need an avalanche of people to help you with one particular project. It is variable, and if businesses are not flexible, and if they can't find the right skills at the right time, then obviously they suffer. So that particular advantage from a company's perspective is important. And on the flip side is when you have a worker who obviously wants employment, might not be entirely skilled the way in which he should be, you can, with your client, give them the opportunity to get into the workplace and then begin to have his skill set improved. And with your client, you work with that worker to actually improve their skills over a period of time. And in changing them from job to job and from client to client, you're adding to their skills all the time. So where he had nothing to start off with, he now has a set of skills which potentially might make him a valuable permanent employee. And that's the whole story behind that.
What do you do to prepare a temporary staff member for an opportunity to go to ABC industry?
We recruit on an ongoing basis, so there are thousands of people to make application on an ongoing basis. We have a standard application form which is graded at different educational levels, different skills levels. So when anyone comes into our environment, completing that particular form is a test in itself. Okay? And we can then assess at what level they're operating at. From there, what we do is we give them an intensive interview. We run a few tests to decide exactly what they can and what they can't do. Because just because you have a matric certificate does not mean to say that you actually can pass matric. So we actually test them again to matric level. And then what we'll do, obviously, is we check references. We check things like if they've got a criminal record, for example, because that's a huge issue in this particular country. If it's a person who might be going to a financial environment, you've got to check their credit ratings, that sort of thing. And then you handpick that individual for a client that you know well. You're not just going to take an individual and thrust them into a client who really doesn't want them, doesn't need them, there's no fit, no cultural fit or anything of that nature. And if you can do that and the client is comfortable, then they'll take that person on. And very, very good opportunity is for an individual to actually work for a client for a few months. So they both get to know each other, understand each other, they know what the one's skills are, they know what the behavior of the manager or the supervisor is going to be, they're comfortable with each other, and then you can convert that into a permanent position. So there's many variations.
So what type of clients do you actually have? Like, who would come to you and get the best value in temporary staff?
I provide place staff in every single industry and commercial venture you can think of in the country, from cosmetics to fast foods, to mining, to manufacturing, to very, very highly skilled positions, to people who just pick up rubbish in a municipal dump.
So highly skilled as well?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
So what started sort of as a company that focused on people that were perhaps a little more desperate?
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
We still do that. I would
Okay.
say probably about a good 80% of our workforce is still those people who need that assistance, who need that step up into industry to try and find employment.
Now, what are some of the risks? I mean, there are risks too in hiring temporary staff. What would be some of those risks?
Well, if the client is just going to take a worker straight off the street, that's a huge risk because he doesn't know who he is, where he's come from, what his background is, what his potential is. It could be a huge problem in terms of the actual factory floor themselves. Okay, never mind anything else. From our side, because we do such a thorough screening exercise on every candidate, and we know them well by the time we place them, and we put them in a position where the client knows this is potentially a new recruit that we're placing into that environment. We have done the references, etc. And if they all check out, he shouldn't be a risk from that perspective. Okay. But you can never tell with human behavior.
That's
So
right.
anything could happen, yeah. And you've got to be there to be able to sort it out, help the client get over it, help the worker understand the situation. And it's an educational process.
What should companies be looking for when they hire temporary help?
I think in this country, you have to accept that the people that you employ, whether it's a temporary basis or a permanent basis, may not have the entire skill set that you want. And you have to be prepared to work along with them, to educate them, to give them that skill set if you can. Okay? I think it's very much a trust issue from both sides, both parties. And I think that one has to accept the fact that you'll have to train regardless.
What obligation does the employer have towards a temporary staff member?
To treat them exactly as they would their own permanent staff, as far as I'm concerned. The responsibility for that temporary worker is both between the client and the person who's providing them, the organisation. And one has to ensure that you're compliant with the law at all times. In other words, your same human resources laws, industrial relations laws, your labour legislation applies, regardless. So it really doesn't matter whether you're temporary or permanent. Mm-hmm. I think that they're part of the family, they're part of the business, you treat them exactly the same. Why should you not treat them any differently?
Now, you were talking about when you are recruiting some of the temporary people, they go through an assessment, and you explain that. Do you do any personality assessments when you're hiring?
It's very, very difficult because every company has their own interests and their own preferences. So, for example, a company will say to you, fine, test a person up to this level, but then if we're looking at him as or her as a particular candidate, we would like to do the personality assessment ourselves or further tests, etc. And they might have 4 or 5 people you send through to them, and they might only select 2, for example. So we leave that pretty much up to the companies themselves, as I said, because they do have preferences.
And I remember doing a personality test once in my career, and they told me I should never end up in sales, and that's what I've been doing for 25 years, so I know what you're talking about. Describe someone you would not hire.
My company has a commitment to find employment for everyone who walks through the door. Only time we have a problem, if that individual has been a convicted criminal, has not declared it, okay, and we're not able to rehabilitate that person. We do work with some of our clients in terms of rehabilitating criminals, yes, but other clients are not comfortable, as you can imagine. And within my own organisation, we have 1 or 2, yes.
Now, do you ever meet somebody that you really think, oh, I don't want them as temporary, I want them for me?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Goodness, if you looked at some of our senior people in terms of the positions that they hold, particularly in key accounts, our key account managers, we have recruited them. There's one particular story that's absolutely delightful, and there's lots of them, like every one, where he finished matric, couldn't find employment for 2 years, came into our offices, registered as a temporary. We literally could only give him a job where he packed boxes on shelves, okay? 10 years later, today, he is a senior accounts manager responsible for over 600 people and a 7 million rand a month account.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
That's what has to happen.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What is your sales process to acquire a new client to put temporary helpers in?
I think what is very important, and the way in which I've always started all of my sales training with my people, is that one has to understand the global economy, what is actually happening out there in the world, and how does it affect our country, and what are the issues as far as our country is concerned. What is the focus of government? What is the focus of business? What are business objectives? What skills do we have that actually can assist businesses to meet their objectives? And that is very much the way in which I look at it. So if, for example, I have a group of highly skilled people, and I know that, let's say, they're of a civil engineering environment, let's say, I will then go and identify a potential client in the market, maybe 3 or 4, have a look at their business, understand their business objectives, ask questions, do the research and so on, and then handpick the people that I think would fit into that particular client, and then actively go into that particular client and look for the opportunity to place those people therein on the basis of meeting that client's business objectives.
Where are you finding those business objectives from?
Research. Asking questions.
So you go and call them, have a meeting with them?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And very often if you go into a business environment, you know the industry, by and large, is struggling with X, let's say, and you know that's potentially a problem. You get to know who their clients are. You do a lot of homework before you actually go into a client and say, all right, this is how I understand your business, this is how I understand your business objectives. You as a manager in that particular department or that particular division, how do you interpret those business objectives and what you have to achieve? Okay, all right, fine, I can help you with these but not with those.
And it's amazing. It can be so straightforward, but so many people don't do it well.
They don't listen.
That's right. What do you do to retain that business?
I think what one does is the first thing that we do is, as I said, confirm the client's business objectives for that particular manager and that particular division. What we then do is we work out a service plan to match his objectives. For example, you might want his staff there 2 o'clock in the morning and they must be there exactly on time. If they're 1 minute late, it's a crisis, okay? Other clients 5 or 10 minutes late, not an issue. So we might have to provide transport into that particular client. He might have a huge shrinkage problem. In other words, there could be, if he's in the distribution environment with processed foods, food might go missing all the time. Okay, so we'd have to address how would we manage that process. So you set up a whole service plan and a service level agreement with the client, and he has to sign it off. Okay, to make quite sure we're both on the same wavelength. This is what you want. This is what we're going to do on a regular basis. Feedback, report back. This is how we're going to react, and so on. And critically important, always legally compliant. Always, in every facet of the business, got to be.
What do you think are some of the characteristics that make a really good salesperson?
You must like people, for starters. I think that you have to be intelligent. I think you really have to listen, not to your own voice, to what the client has got to say, and if you're looking from a recruitment perspective, what the place staff have got to say. You must be able to match those two. And I think that you must do everything that you possibly can in order to maintain that business and to be there to actually be a proper liaison between the two. So to me, it's critical that one does that all the time. It's 24/7, there's no messing about.
Do as much as you can to maintain that business. Can you give us some examples that you feel are necessary to do in order to make sure that customer continues coming back?
You've got to have frequent meetings with the client to give them feedback and report back just on how the business is going, how you actually support them and so on. If he has any problem whatsoever, you attend to it immediately, and if you can't, you say so. If you have a problem that you really cannot deal with, you cannot resolve, you must say so, okay? Not hide behind any nonsense and give the reasons why you can't attend to it. And then together with the client, try to actually work out a plan that you can resolve those issues, whatever they might be.
In your experience as an executive, do you think a lot of people actually just do those sorts of things?
No. I think it also has a lot to do with the ethos of a company and the culture, because the way I look at my company, I'm excessively proud of my people, right down to the very last one, no matter what their level is. To me, they're all part of my family, and I'm responsible for all of them. And as I said to you earlier, I will never do anything that I won't ask someone else to do. I'll do exactly the same thing, no problem whatsoever. And I think that they know that we're all dependent upon each other, because that's a culture that I've built up over time, and that we're all responsible for our own actions, but they know that there's a ripple effect in terms of things which haven't been done. And to be honest with you, I think my company and the people in it particularly are absolutely fantastic, because they really go the extra mile. They really are on duty 24/7, 365. I know that I can phone my senior executive or my housekeeper, for example, and it sounds terrible, I know, but at 2 o'clock in the morning from Japan, and they'll pick up the phone and answer me. And I'll do exactly the same for them. So they know that we are, together in whatever it is that we face. And I really enjoy that. And that you build up over a period of time.
Outside your organization, looking at the business community at large, do you find that in South Africa people are following through with what I would call business etiquette? Some of the fundamentals of following up, doing what you're saying you're going to do, making sure that you're doing that, in creating that core philosophy in organizations. Do you have any insight into that?
I don't think it always happens, to be honest with you. I think that we still have a bit of a mindset in terms of you owe me, in terms of, well, I don't really want to deal with this problem, or I don't understand the problem, and I'd rather just throw it away or try and give it to somebody else or just ignore it. I think that's, a lot of that is out there, unfortunately. But at the same time, we also have some absolutely excellent business leaders in this country, and their people will work with them all the time, anytime. So you've got this huge contrast between the two. So, and I couldn't say it's whether it's 50% or 40%. That'd be difficult to say.
And one day when we figure out what it is, which percentage, I'm betting that it'd be the people that have some fundamental business etiquette, some of the things that are the basics that have the happiest employees and
Absolutely.
also the best growth potential.
Yes.
That you could recommend to people that you feel that has really helped you in business or in life? You can do personal or professional.
I think the way in which I've developed is I've simply, as you know, my mother died when I was very, very young, and I think what happened was that at that age I became very independent, and I knew that I was responsible for my actions, whatever they were. There was no one to bail me out of trouble. And I think that from that very early age, I was just responsible and just developed who I am today from that. And I think which was also very important, and it might be a bit difficult to understand this, but my father was what I would call a man of honor. He kept his word. And I'm like that too. I give a commitment, that's it. I give the commitment. I might take a little while to make up my mind about the commitment, but once I give it, that's it. I will stick with it.
Well, then that goes back to some of the business etiquette we were talking about, and probably why you've been able to grow a business so successfully and persevere during some more challenging times. Now, what has been, do you think, the most significant impact you've had in your career to date?
I think on me personally, I like to think I've made a positive difference in this country. I like to think that I'm going to leave a positive legacy behind. And I like to think that I've been able to give people opportunities that they've never had before. And it's turned out well for them because they've also played their part. And from the other side, from my staff side, the place staff and the permanent staff that I employ, again, I think it's mainly the opportunity to perhaps get on the bottom rung of the ladder and work their way up to something that maybe they thought they'd never achieve in their whole lives, and actually be there and be surprised at themselves that you'd be able to get there, with me being obviously trying to help them along. I think that's the most important things.
So when you say legacy, though, what is that legacy to you? What are you going to be leaving behind?
The legacy I'm going to leave behind is, I hope, a happy company, a company that's motivated to help other people, and that's very much the culture of the company. And what I hope to do is to leave a company that's sustainable and that will continue to grow and will continue to make a contribution, not just in this country, but actually in the continent, because I think that is where it's actually needed.
Now, if there is one thing you can attribute your success to, something that happened to you, or an attitude or a personality trait, what would that be?
I don't understand the word no.
Next. Today, what is the most rewarding aspect of your career?
The happiness of the people around me, and the ability to find them an opportunity to sort out, as again, the poverty. And that to me has been the best thing ever. Really and truly, because that to me means that there's opportunity for people, they recognize who they are, they respect who they are as individuals. So many people, particularly in organizations, just become numbers, little grey nothings, you know. And your CEO will sit at the top of the heap and hasn't a clue what's going on down the bottom, to be honest with you. I know what's happening. And I love my people, I think they're great.
There's probably been several challenges that you've had throughout your career. Can you tell us a couple of those challenges, and if you would do anything differently as a result of learning what you have learned from those challenges, or would you continue doing it the exact same way?
I think I would continue doing things exactly the same way, because I have a core of stability and a core of strength which has developed over the years from all sorts of experiences that obviously I'm not going to tell you all of them, but some of them have been very, very frightening, extremely challenging, and there's no one else to sort it out except me. So I just get on with it, do it, okay? And I think one of the lessons which I like, if I'm ever really nervous about something, I talk to myself and I say, Angela, don't be ridiculous. There are millions of women throughout the world that deal with this, and I get on with it. But I think that some of the challenges, and we spoke about some of them before, is I have been placed in some seriously frightening situations. And just the one little one, as I mentioned, was when I was about 7 months pregnant. Funny enough, as my youngest daughter, one of the things that I had to do in a national stay away, which is when all the roads closed down, there's no transport, etc. I actually spent a night in one of our offices without any electricity, sleeping on coir mattresses with my people, 7 months pregnant as I said, running a bit of a soup kitchen because that's what they needed. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, put out about 600 black males. I was the only white female around, okay, into that particular area, into the trucks to get them to work. And the very next day, unfortunately, in that particular environment, the riot police came in and opened fire on a crowd of people, and they killed 3 of my people in front of me, as close as I am to you. That's a challenge you have to deal with.
Those challenges hopefully have changed over time.
There's still many situations in violence. For example, you know, the Marikana strike and the violence which is engendered there. The national transport strike, which has been going on for the last 3 weeks or so. I mean, obviously my people are driving trucks. Obviously they're being dragged out of the trucks. The trucks are being burnt and so on. I deal with violence on a daily basis. And I deal with poverty on a daily basis. And you can become very, very hard if you don't have an inner core of being able to deal with it.
So talk about that. How do you deal with that?
I think one has to assess the situation and deal with it from a practical basis, but always behind it is a fact that you have put someone into that job position and they've actually been placed in danger. Not of their making, not of your making, but they are in a dangerous situation. What do? You pull them out immediately. I won't have my people put into danger. Okay? So there's a practical application to that. But when there is a situation where someone has been hurt, it's very important to go there and to face the family directly yourself and speak to the family about what has happened and do whatever you can to assist that family to deal with those issues. Mm-hmm. It makes you very strong.
Would make you very strong. And at the same time, you seem to be a very sensitive person. If you're dealing with poverty and violence on a daily basis, how do you manage that balance to make sure you can still lead your company in the right direction and still be positive, because at the end of the day, it comes back to you?
I think what's important for me is that the perspective and the view that I've always had is I am not important. I'm just a little speck in this huge universe. It's my responsibility to look after my people. So I must do it, whatever I may feel. Doesn't matter if I'm in a traumatic situation myself or not. I've got to be there to be seen to lead and to be stable. And you have to do that for them. It's for them, it's not for me.
Where'd you learn how to do that?
I don't know. Experience, life's experiences, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. This is what I call my edginess segment. Okay, and what this refers to is something that you've had to do that makes you uncomfortable. At some point, you push the edge of your comfort zone, something that you had to do.
I don't think it's really linked to success as such, but I think it's the dealing with the ongoing violence, the ongoing poverty. Because when I look at the situation, I think to myself, what the people of South Africa want. They want exactly the same as I do. They want a home for their children, they want food for their children, they want transport to get to work, they want employment, and they want some kind of future for their children. And that's what keeps me going. Because to me it's that simple. Okay, very complex to deal with, yes, absolutely. But if that is the objective long term, that's what keeps you going. It keeps me going at any rate. And you deal with these things as best you can.
Now, do you feel you're conducting your purpose?
Yes, I think so. I'd like to do more. I'd like to be, I think, in many other areas, but then obviously one is constrained in terms of budget and so on and so forth. But I do it in different ways as well, in terms of various associations that I belong to, and in terms of the various organizations that I belong to outside of the company. So probably about 30% of my time is spent outside of the organization, in organizations like Business Unity South Africa. I play a role there. Like CAPES, which looks after the staffing services industry, like APSO, for example. So I make my contribution there as well as within my own organization. To me, that has a broader impact. Okay, so even though I'm concentrating on here, which is good for all of us, hopefully there's a message which is spreading out there as well, which seems to be the case.
Yeah. Now, do you have any, advice to other women to try to find their purpose or their track in life?
I think you need to look within yourself and say, what actually am I here for? What is a contribution I can make? What is it that I can actually do that will make a positive difference? And whatever it is, in whatever little field it is, do it. And just keep on doing it, and keep on being steady and determined to actually make it happen in your own environment. Trust yourself and trust your instincts. I think it's very, very important. And don't let anyone ever tell you you're not good enough, because you are.
What does success mean to you?
I've achieved what I've set out to achieve. But I haven't got there yet. I'm still on the way.
Where's there?
I don't know. The goalposts keep on moving.
How do you define leadership?
Your people must have trust and confidence in you, and you must have trust and confidence in your people. You must work together on whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And there must be total commitment from both sides. And you as the leader are responsible for inculcating that type of culture in your people. That's the way that I look at it.
If there was 3 pieces of advice you could give to somebody who leads a project or initiative, what would that be? Trust, I know you mentioned earlier, would be one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's total commitment, trust, confidence, and the ability to lead with your people. They're not reporting to you, you're working with them. They're part of the team. And each one is equally important in that team, no matter what the level is. Mm-hmm. And I really, really believe that.
So leading with your people, can you just describe a situation or a circumstance where you're actually with them?
I think on an ongoing basis, if you have a look, for example, at my senior executive team, and there are 8 of them, that I believe very much in participative management, and obviously they've been brought up and developed over the years. And I'm perfectly happy to accept, without a doubt, that I do not know everything. I can't. Therefore, I'm totally happy to accept information, advice, recommendations, literally from any level. Some of the best ideas in this company have come from our housekeepers, to give you an idea. And it's important for them to know that I acknowledge it, that I'll take it, I'll look at it, and I'll format it into something which is positive for all of us. And I think that's critical. Don't be so high and mighty that you think you know everything you don't.
Well, the fact that a housekeeper would come and tell you, do they actually come and tell you an idea?
Absolutely, yes.
So what kind of environment, obviously an open door type thing, but
Yes.
could be a big stretch.
Yes.
What gives them the confidence? What do you do to give them the confidence to approach you?
Maybe what I do is that I think that they all know me pretty well. And the reason that they know me well is I accept them as part of my family, they're part of my family. What I also do on a daily basis is and the only way I can contact and reach out to my people every single day is to send every single one an email every day, which I do. And I call it my thought for the day. And what I do is just something that I've been thinking about, or I know has been of concern to one of my people perhaps, or something which is happening out in the country, or just a positive thought, something spiritual, just to say to them, I'm thinking about this, I know it might apply to you, think about it too. So they know that I'm stretching out to them every single day. I need to have that. Mm-hmm. And I get the most wonderful feedback from all corners. It's absolutely amazing. And you just never know when you stretch out to reach people and to touch their hearts and their minds, what's going to come back. It's incredible.
Now, as far as being a face around even the office, do you do anything to make sure that people see you physically?
Yeah, I'm all over the place all the time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can never tell where I'm going to be because I don't even know half the time.
Now, what would you like your leadership legacy to be?
I would like my senior executive team to be as much like me as possible in terms of the spiritual aspect of it, okay, and the practical aspect. I can't have anyone in a leadership position that doesn't have the same kind of cultural ethic that I do. The fit just isn't there. So if they can continue with the willingness to assist people wherever they can, I'm happy.
You've alluded to you're not done yet, and I'm a very curious person. So what is next for you?
To continue to grow, to continue to make a difference. And I think that the day that I feel I can't make a difference, maybe that's the day that I say, okay, I hand it over to the team. But they're working with me all the time anyway. Mm-hmm. I haven't got this fixed 5-year plan or anything of that nature at all. I'm busy all the time. There are so many different areas which you can make a difference. It doesn't necessarily have to be the business itself direct. Hundreds of different areas. So I'm just going to keep on going. As I keep on threatening my staff, I'm going to be 104, wear a red hat, have a purple cane and come in here shouting at them all.
So let's say she's 10 today.
Yes.
She's 10 years old.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to her, knowing what you know today?
I think to have confidence in herself and to draw her inspiration from the people around her that she respects and who respect her in return. I think respect is critically important at every level, and it is two-way traffic. And I think that's the main thing that I would give to her.
And lastly, what words of wisdom do you have for African women?
I think the most important thing, and I did mention it earlier, is to trust their own inner instincts. Look around you. Again, look at what you respect, who you believe in, and who do you believe is genuine. Don't be swayed by the material, superficial nonsense around you. What is the genuine essence of what it is you're trying to achieve? And stick with it. Don't ever give up. Don't believe in that.
Yeah, definitely, that's obvious. Coming from the woman that will not give up and it will never be finished, so look out to 104. Again, my name is Suzanne F Stevens, and I co-produce Wisdom Exchange TV alongside my husband Michael K. Ginra. We travel all over Africa, interviewing women leaders, pioneers, trailblazers like Anglea that we met today. So if you know someone we should interview, please email us at info@wisdomexchangetv. Join us on Wisdom Exchange TV Facebook fan page, and also go to the front page of our site because we syndicate blogs of leading ladies as well as myself, and you'll learn new information every single day. Thank you so much for joining us.